Good morning. The heavy earnings week continues. Our machines are taking a look at Philips, Coca-Cola, and Cadence Design Systems.
Philips announced results on April 25, 2022. Interesting facts picked up from the call. This increase in registrations led us to revise the U.S. regression model, based on which we now anticipate an additional 300,000 units which will need to be remediated given the increased number of devices. We now expect to complete over 90% of the production and shipment to customers in 2022. 2 are obviously the shortages and dislocation in the supply chain, geopolitical challenges and increasing inflationary environment, and 3, the huge undertaking in Philips Rest Products to do everything to deliver a solution to patients and caregivers affected as fast as we can. During the first quarter, we also signed 12 more long-term strategic partnerships across the world, demonstrating the trust hospital leaders have in our ability to help them enhance health outcomes, lower the cost of care, improve patient and staff experience. This further builds on the good order intake growth in recent quarters, resulting in an all-time high equipment order book for Philips, in fact, more than 30% higher than a year ago, as shown on page 27 of our presentation. Here are some of the questions that were asked during the earnings call, to have a better idea of the discussions that were happening. Given arguably stronger demand on the top line, but margin weakness owing to supply chain pressures and inflation, do you expect supply chain issues to persist for longer? If I could just follow up on the top line, could you talk about how installations are trending and whether you're seeing any improvement here globally, presumably maybe a worsening situation in China? I would love to meet somebody who can exactly predict what will happen in China and what will the consequences be on the global supply chain. Given ongoing supply chain challenges, how much of the current order book do you expect to convert to sales in the next 12 months? So I just wanted to understand, given the current environment, do you think you will have to hold structurally more inventories going forward given what looks like ongoing disruption to supply chains? Last, we used sentiment analysis to see how the analyst call sounded about specific topics. About sales, the sentiment is 64% negative. About prices, the sentiment is 50% positive. About growth, the sentiment is 71% positive. About outlook, the sentiment is 50% positive.
Coca-Cola announced results on April 25, 2022. Interesting facts picked up from the call. For example, in Latin America we are continuing the expansion of refillables to sparkling flavors in juices, and this remains a compelling consumer proposition to address the need for affordability in North America. We're maximizing value by initiatives like the one expanding the availability of minicans for consumption across occasions such as breaks and meals, and by offering 6-packs, 10-packs and 30-packs, driving an approximate 45% increase in retail dollars in measured channels and then near 20% increase in total distribution points. The continued rollout of new and improved Coca-Cola Zero Sugar across key markets helped drive 5 percentage points of sparkling single-serve mixed growth, which is ahead of pre-pandemic levels, top of cheaper hard sellers, closing the gap with the number 1 wholesaler brand in Europe in the B2B business with myccep.com accounted for low double-digit contribution to total revenue. The strong rollout of Real Magic platform and the successful launch of Coke Starlight resulted in Coke trademark being the fastest-growing trademark in measured retail, driving household penetration. Upper Full Point Powerades paused his Power launch during NCAA March Madness, generating more than 1 billion impressions. Despite an inflationary backdrop in the UK, Costa continued to recover, driven by retail and strong like-for-like sales with Costa Express in China. While retail sales were impacted by store closures due to the pandemic, Costa Ready-to-Drink Coffee sustained its number 2 position and continued to innovate with Costa Char. Here are some of the questions that were asked during the earnings call, to have a better idea of the discussions that were happening. So first, maybe just looking backwards, can you give us an update on if you're seeing any signs of consumer stress in terms of impacts on your business or pushback to higher pricing around the world, either late in Q1 or in April, and then also on a go-forward basis, can you just pose the positive impact of normalization, of covert behavior on your businesses away from home recovers, maybe versus any potential macro pressure? Do you see room for additional pricing, perhaps in developed markets, any particularly certain clusters in the US, and if not, any flexibility to protect the bottom line with SG&E efficiencies that you can highlight at this point? Is there a potential expectation that Coke Zero may be bigger than regular Coke in North America within the next 5 years? Last, we used sentiment analysis to see how the analyst call sounded about specific topics. About sales, the sentiment is 75% positive. About investments, the sentiment is 83% positive. About growth, the sentiment is 71% positive. About costs, the sentiment is 60% positive.
Cadence Design Systems announced results on April 25, 2022. Interesting facts picked up from the call. Companies used Cadence Cerebras to achieve 5x engineering productivity and nearly 10% power gains on a critical advanced node subsystem, and a leading Asia-Pacific hyperscaler used Cadence Cerebros with our digital full flow to tape out a chip with nearly 2 billion instances, reducing power by 5% compared to the alternative flow. Over the past year, our CFD solutions have continued to proliferate, especially in the aerospace and defense arena, with market-shaping customers such as Lockheed Martin in Q1. Juniper Networks renewed their commitment to Cadence technology, including comprehensive access to our systems portfolio across PCB packaging and system analysis solutions. Our system design and analysis business, which is driving our expansion beyond EDA, continued its strong momentum in Q1, delivering 22% year-over-year revenue growth. Here are some of the questions that were asked during the earnings call, to have a better idea of the discussions that were happening. You had roughly a 16% sequential increase, and I was wondering to what extent has emulation and prototyping hardware tools contributed to that increase as well as IP? Should we think about that as a competitive displacement from your side, or should we think about it more as similar scope or maybe expanded scope but larger contract values? Maybe just going back to the backlog development, when you think about how your involvement with the marquee U.S. semiconductor company has evolved. Do you think that is emblematic of kind of how your relationships across your broader customer base are evolving, and maybe at a strategic level? And in any case, given the overall rising tide of your business, given the strength of the end markets, how are you seeing the kinds of services and support requirements that you're having to invest in and expand for your customer base? Is there an update on how to think about your cloud, the kind of move to the cloud for some of your products, or whether or not you're seeing some of your customers move to even a hybrid cloud situation? Last, we used sentiment analysis to see how the analyst call sounded about specific topics. About sales, the sentiment is 100% negative. About prices, the sentiment is 66% positive. About growth, the sentiment is 73% positive. About outlook, the sentiment is 55% negative.
I hope you found today's updates helpful. If you want to learn how to build your own algorithms, you can check our free YouTube channel where we post hands-on courses about how to build them, or get the book that is looking at multiple types of investment algorithms, or feel free to check our small group customized lessons for something more personalized.